Hello, everybody. I'm just gonna give it a minute, let everyone kind of get settled, get in here, and uh, we'll kick off this boot camp. Day one of boot camp. Um, this has become a an annual tradition of College A Pro.
In February.
Uh,
Yeah.
this is where we sometimes, well, before I get ahead of myself, I know there's a lot of you coming in, so I would just like to hear real quick. Are you guys longtime listeners? Put in the chat real quick. Like, are you guys been watching past webinars with College A Pro, or is this well? All right, okay. Got two extremes. First time and listened a lot this year. So, Doug, you're going to be the one I give you a bunch of pop quizzes. Melissa, bunch of pop quizzes. No, I'm kidding. But this is where I feel like we tend to give maybe a little deeper insight on certain things, maybe share it a little bit more than we would in a normal webinar. Um, so anyway, so the good time uh, to join us tonight. So hope it'll be worth your while. And as always, and I know I just told you put stuff in the chat, but when you have questions, please tell us, let us know, but put them in the Q&A. Because honestly, I will get lost in the chat with the questions. But if you put them in the Q&A, it wonderfully keeps them sorted. And as I always say, ask all your questions while I'm talking, so Kevin has to answer them all. But anyway, so yeah, it looks like we have a whole variety of whether you're first timers or longtime listeners and kind of in between. Um, I'm assuming, I'm just going to assume everyone here is like maybe a parent or somebody of class of 2026. Maybe I shouldn't assume that, but I'm going to assume that. Um, and I'm just curious, like, have you been receiving financial aid award letters? Um, eh, are you getting overwhelmed with financial aid award letters? Or are we still kind of waiting? Or I'm kind of gauge where you're at in this process. Okay. Yeah, looks like, all right. Good, 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 good. Oh, someone, nothing yet. Still waiting for him. The waiting is terrible, isn't it? Just
The worst part.
it really is. It
Yeah.
it really is. I have like because I used to live in California. A lot of my clients are like applying to UCs or Cal States, and it's like for the most part they don't even announce their admissions decision until like next month. So I've had kids like submit their applications 4 months ago, and they're just like, "Oh, what am I going to get in? Am I going to get in?" And then the financial aid offers will come later. But so yeah, I feel you. Okay.
I, I don't know about you, JP, but I've done a lot of late night calls saying everything's gonna be okay. Waiting
Yeah.
is part of the process.
Yep.
Um, it's stressful.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I and there's the other boat too. Like I had a family who received their admissions decision well over a month ago with no financial aid offer yet. And I was like, that's the timing doesn't make sense because I'm like, usually you get a financial aid offer, within a few days, maybe a week later. And so I was like, log into the student portal to see like, are they asking for something? And sure enough, they logged in. They're like, oh yeah, it says we need to submit this document. And I'm like, go submit that document. Like they're waiting for you. And that's just this thing where like the family didn't know. They just thought that they were going to be contacted. I'm like, no, not always. Sometimes you just got to proactively check the portal. So anyway, um, awesome, awesome, awesome. So before we kind of get into tonight's boot camp, Kevin, you want to introduce yourself real quick and say hi?
Sure. I'm Kevin Murphy. I'm one of the college planning experts here at CAP. Joined CAP back in 2024 and started doing college financial aid planning back in 2018. I got into it from financial services. Fell in love with it very quickly, much more than I actually liked financial services. And I've worked with countless families, somewhere over 1,000, and I love what I do. And that's it. That's enough about me, JP. I'll kick it over to you.
Um, as far as I go, the The nickname is Santa Claus of college planning. And it's not just because I'm fat, but the beard and all that.
I'm gonna promote your LinkedIn real quick because you've got the best graphics going on right now.
Oh golly.
Yep.
Yes, the I'm hosting right now Santa's naughty list,
Hmm.
or Santa's workshop, but the schools that there's certain schools that have made my naughty list this year, and I'm calling them out. I'm being polite about it, but I'm calling them out. So yes, I have gotten some interesting comments between Facebook and LinkedIn. But anyway, um, but just my background real quick. I 26 years ago, minus a week, is when I started working in financial aid. I started working in the financial aid office at the University of Southern California. Um, I want to say the real USC, but there's another
I'm
USC
gonna
on the other
offend some
coast.
people with that.
Yeah, I know, I know.
Yeah.
But the USC on the West Coast. But I was a director of financial aid. I worked at USC overall 18 years. I even outside of the financial aid office too. I even ended my time as a adjunct professor. But the I frankly kind of transitioned out of USC when I just realized I was only helping the people that wanted to come to USC, and there was just way more people that need help. And it was, I keep seeing the same mistakes, happen year after year after year, and so yeah, so I bring, I guess, a fair amount of insight. Let's call it insight experience, kind of the mentality of what financial aid people, how we think and how we approach situations and all that stuff, and maybe a little bit of the why we do what we do. And that arguably gives me some advantage. But that's my background. Um, but anyway, so tonight we're talking about these financial aid award letters and kind of try to make sense of them, and especially for those who already have some award letters, maybe pull some up and kind of follow along. Maybe we won't have those exact same examples, perhaps, but um, there might be something revealing in there that we call out. So, do you want to share the slides there, sir?
Absolutely. Just a heads up, everyone. I'm terrible at screen sharing, so you're gonna have to bear with me tonight, but I will do my best. There we go.
Beautiful.
Yep.
And so, especially for anybody who's a first timer, Kevin and I are part of a wonderful organization called College Aid Pro, and I always like to say we're on a mission from God, but we are on a mission, and it really is to help. And what frankly is a crisis in our country. The student debt is a absolute crisis, and the college costs are a crisis. And the way we try to help end this is by empowering you to shop smarter. Really want to transform this whole college process, if you will. So, very much firmly believe that the more you know, better it is for you, assuming you act on what we teach you and share with you. I think the best analogies, I think, golly, it might have been Ron, who wrote an article in the New York Times that the description, it might not have been Ron, I might be wrong on this, but he gave an analogy that basically said, this process with college, think of it like a checkerboard. Parents and the families, you guys think you're playing checkers, but what you don't realize is the colleges are actually playing chess. So I always think of it as like we're trying to teach you how to play chess when it comes to college and financial aid and all that. So anyway, go ahead, sir, and let's pass on. So tonight, key things I want you to probably remember: the financial aid offer, especially for all of you who have financial aid offers, like hold them. They're just offers. They're not final. Okay. I will say there are some bad actors out there who will intentionally lowball you and hope you're going to take it. And I'm just going to share, like, at a high level. This is admittedly inside knowledge that's even above like your typical financial aid person. This would be more at the enrollment services, the bosses of financial aid. Higher education as an industry has tracked more data about you and your shopping habits and spending habits than any industry. They know more about you than Google, and it's basically Google learned from higher education and how to track families and all this stuff. And when they collect a CSS profile and a FAFSA and all that stuff, they, especially when you start asking, wondering like, well, why do they ask all these questions that are not financial? It's because they're putting you into an algorithm, and they have an algorithm that tells them, we anticipate people that fit the certain algorithm are going to pay X amount of dollars for college, and maybe not every family will, but they can pretty astutely count on a certain percentage, a certain yield will pay whatever dollar amount. And so you have to understand that higher education, especially the schools that say our sticker price is $100,000 a year. No, it's not. Frankly, it's a lie. They'll say it's marketing. It's a lie though, and they it's a business model that they've been trained to implement for about 40 years now, solid 35 years, where they have been trained by marketing agencies to say, if you want to seem more prestigious to families, if you want to ultimately attract more applicants and get more to actually commit to your school, start raising your price above what it really costs. And so that's here we are now, why we are finding schools that say our sticker price is 100,000 a year. And then the model is to go, what's the least amount of money we can give you to make you commit? And so it's the analogy I would say is it's like they're fishing, and the financial aid is the bait, and they're trying to give you the least amount of bait to get you to bite and hook you in, right? And so if they say we're worth 100,000 a year, and let's say they give you 20,000 in aid, and you're going, well, I got a 20% discount. That's pretty good. I mean, frankly, they could have given you 50% discount and they'd still make money. So the idea here is you have to understand that some schools are lowballing you, and they're just trying to get you to take the bait. So and so frankly, you can, I don't like to use this word, but I'm going to say it. You can try to negotiate, right? So you can reject that offer and frankly ask for more. And that's where we go through an appeals process. And correct me if I'm wrong, tomorrow night, Kevin, that the boot camp is all about the appeals, right? So so tonight we're just going to kind of try to show you, help you see or interpret your financial aid offer, what to do with those award letters, how to use the MyCap software to help you and determine like, should I appeal? And if so, how would I do that? Again, we'll talk about that tomorrow night. But I hope that creates the framework for what we want to set up for tonight. Okay. So let's go on here. Let's move forward. So starting page, I reference this. So start by setting up your MyCap account. If you don't have a MyCap account, I'm going to actually tell you to take, and Kevin just put it in the chat. I'm going to tell you to take 2 minutes and tune me out and create the MyCap account. Okay. Because this will be the most powerful tool that you can use to help you figure out, like, did I get a good deal or not? And I'm not over exaggerating that. Before College Aid Pro, I already knew College Aid Pro before they even existed. This MyCap tool existed. As someone who did financial aid and I would consult my families, I used to do all these kinds of calculations by hand. And I can't tell you how much it's just made my life so much easier to go, well, I can put this in the MyCap software. It's way more convenient, right? So anyway, so set up the free account if you haven't already. If you do have your account, I'm going to even tell you, go ahead and pull it up as well. But so let's just talk about what you're going to see in that financial aid offer. And if you've been to any of our financial aid webinars, you should kind of expect this. Hopefully you got some free money, right? Hopefully there's maybe some grants or scholarships. That's the free money. We love that. That's what actually helps bring the costs down. right? And so just remember grants are awarded based upon a financial need. So that's where like, your income and assets and all that stuff came into play. And then there's scholarships, and that's based upon merit. Let's just call it generically merit. And that merit could be academic in nature, like I have a 1500 SAT score or, whatever. But that merit could be I'm number one seated drummer in my state, and I'm joining the band or something. Could be sports, whatever. But it could be talent related as well. But for whatever reason, they are awarded a merit based scholarship. Again, we love both grants and scholarships. It's free money. That's what we want. That's what when we look at the school sticker price, you subtract out the free money to kind of go, what's the school really costing me? And I say that because the other things you might see in an offer letter would be loans. Do loans make school more, cheaper? No, if anything, they make school more expensive. You're going to pay back a loan with interest, but it is a form of financial assistance in that you don't have to at least write a check for that dollar amount right now. Like you can finance it, right? So there's the most common loan, like everyone's going to be awarded, every child will be awarded a federal direct loan just for filling out the FAFSA. So for all of you, who, where your kids are going to be a freshman next year, you all are going to be eligible up to $5,500 in a federal direct loan. Your child will be eligible for as a freshman for $5,500 in a federal direct loan. Sometimes the school might mention a parent plus loan in that offer letter. It's not guaranteed. There is technically a credit check to it, extremely easy credit check, but there is that is a very common loan that gets mentioned on a financial aid offer letter, and that is for the parent. That'll be in the parent's name, and the max you could borrow in a particular year would be 20,000. And then you might see work study. Okay, work study is not gonna help pay the bill with the school, like pay the tuition bill per se. But what work study can be used for is to help pay those indirect expenses, like the fun money, laundry money, going out to Starbucks money, whatever. But
Or for other things too.
well, other things too, But the potential advantage if you qualify for work study, the reason that it can be an advantage is you can probably much easier to find a job on campus because the government is subsidizing the pay. So, and I don't know off the top of my head what the exact ratio is, but let's just say if the school says, hey, this is a part-time job and we pay $12 an hour, the federal work study is subsidizing a lot of that. And then so it's cheaper labor, for the school to hire a student with work study eligibility. Doesn't mean, someone without work study couldn't get a job on campus or get a job off campus, right? Like when I was a kid, I didn't get work study, but I worked off campus, so it's not like you can't find a job, you can, but work study does make it easier. All right. All
Can I
right.
add one
So
thing real quick to loans?
say
Uh,
that again. Yeah.
I want to add one thing with loans. Because yes, by filing the FAFSA, everyone's going to be eligible for the $5,500, but not every school gives it to you. Um,
Good point.
so let's say that that's part of your plan, or let's say that you want your student to take this federal direct student loan that JP was talking about. There's a chance you have to ask for it, but no matter what, you're entitled to it. Just know that if it's not on the offer and you filed the FAFSA, it's a quick email to the Office of Financial Aid.
Yep. A great point because I've seen that too, where like because the school might have just done like what I call a tier one part of eligibility of the direct loan, and so maybe it said 2,500 or sometimes maybe some weird number, and but it didn't mention anything else. Absolutely, you're eligible for that 5,500 direct loan as a total. And then I see in the Q&A someone said, if a parent plus loan is not mentioned on it, can you still apply for it? Absolutely. It's not my favorite loan by any means, but you can apply for any kind of loan to help cover the gap. But so even if it's not mentioned, it is something you could do. All right. Let's see. Go ahead. And so here's just a sample. We're going to show you a couple samples of award letters. So in this case, I think the thing we want to highlight, this sometimes happens, is that the first offer letter you get might say estimated. And we highlighted that top. And the reason it's estimated, there's a couple reasons it could be estimated, to be honest. One is, in the case of Fairfield here, they basically say it's estimated because the cost of attendance is not been finalized. You know, they haven't, the budget hasn't been finalized and all that stuff. So that's why it's estimated. Sometimes though, I have a family, I was sharing this with Kevin earlier. I had a family who applied ED to Northeastern, and they had received an estimated financial aid offer letter with a certain dollar amount in funds, and then a couple weeks later they got the official financial aid offer letter, and it had more grant funds in it. And frankly, the estimated offer was just off of based on the CSS profile. They got the CSS profile real quick, and they just ran a quick calculation off of that. Then when they got the FAFSA, then they did a deeper dive in the file, and then they did sent an official financial aid offer letter. So there's two basic reasons why you might see an estimated financial aid offer. Okay. And the other thing I do like about this is they separate out the direct costs versus the indirect costs. So like when we refer to like the sticker price, or the school says our cost of attendance is, it's actually the combo, the accumulation of those direct costs and the indirect costs. And so the direct costs are just basically the charged by the school, the tuition, the room, the board, any of their miscellaneous fees, right? But you should be aware of what those indirect costs are. Again, you're not going to pay those indirect costs of the school, but so think of it as like a budget. Like, how much should we budget for books? How much should we budget for transportation? I mean, frankly, the transportation number could be accurate, but it's probably extremely inaccurate, because let's say you're on the East Coast and you're going to go to school on the West Coast. Your transportation would be a lot different than someone who already lived on the West Coast, right? So you have to take that budget with a grain of salt. So, but it's going to be what they officially publish to say, hey, you should budget for these about this much. But I do appreciate when they make it very clear which ones are the direct costs versus the indirect costs. And then the other thing you'll see is in the award letter, they don't, Fairfield doesn't highlight this. We highlighted it, but they show, they call it the free money. They call it scholarship, right? They call it grant. Like, makes it obvious, free money. Then you'll see the direct loan. There's a subsidized part in this particular case, a subsidized part and an unsubsidized part. But again, the key is that everybody is eligible up to a total of 5,500 in direct loan. And this is showing you is like the best case scenario. The most you can have in tier one is of subsidized is 3,500. And then tier two, as I label it, is $2,000. So, but if nothing else, just remember that everyone as a freshman is eligible to $5,500 in direct loans. Try to think, anything else I want to say on this? Anything else you want to say on this one?
No, no, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, but yes, sometimes you might have to complete verification, right? So that would be the uploading of tax documentation or things like that. And that's, you can see down here, many financial aid applications are selected for verification. So like that could be holding it back as well. But aside from that, you covered everything.
Okay. Now, I just got talking about like how on the Fairfield offer, where it was very clear and distinguished, like this is a scholarship, this is a grant. I throw in this letter from Santa Barbara because this is the example of when it can be confusing. They called this, in California, I don't know if we have any Californians on here, but in California we have a couple state awards, and one of them is the middle class scholarship. It's not a scholarship, meaning it wasn't awarded based upon some sort of merit. It's really a grant. It's technically need-based. It was based upon their income and assets. And the same thing goes for the UC Santa Barbara scholarship. is not a scholarship. It's a grant. And some other schools do this too. It escapes me. I just had it on top of my head, but there are some times when schools call grants scholarships, and it's
Oh, so many. NYU, BU,
yeah,
Bard. We could keep going
it,
on and on.
yeah, and it's I get frustrated because I'm like I can get into semantics and stuff, and I'm like, no, it's not. I and so the point of that is it matters to know really what it is in the event you need to do an appeal, and that'll be something that gets talked about more tomorrow night. But is if I see these ideas, like if I go, oh, I got this scholarship, and I feel like I should appeal, like normally you'd appeal to admissions for scholarships, but that would be wrong. Like an appeal for more money in this scenario needs to be the financial aid office because all of this was grant money at the end of the day. So it can be confusing, and that's where you do want to just if you're questioning, like, is this really a scholarship? Like, did my kid really get a merit scholarship? Double check the school site, because sometimes, like, again, sometimes they just call all grants, sometimes get the scholarship name to it. So just want to be clear on that. All right, let's move on.
Wait, real quick. I do want to say,
Yeah.
you might have said this, but this also might be why sometimes you might hear from a friend or a family member, hey, my child got a big scholarship from NYU. It was based on need.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. My kids, so you're like, my kid's smarter than that other kid, but they didn't, but they got a big Johnny scholarship. Yeah. No, they really got a grant. But, anyways, now here's an example. I'll say borderline deceptive. I'm not calling out ASU on like there are worse offenders in the past, but the thing I just really want to point out here is if you're just kind of scanning through this, and you might be like, "Wow, look at all this, total aid, $55,000." No, the total really the aid was 29,500. They put in the federal direct loan. It's in this case, as you see, is all unsubsidized. That can happen, and it's 5,500. I don't mind, frankly, that they added that $5,500 direct loan to the total aid. Where I get fried though is when they put in that Parent Plus loan and called that aid. Like, no, no, that's you taking a loan, mom and dad taking a loan to pay for college. Like, no, don't make it look like I got more financial aid than I did. So that's where this is. I mean, they do highlight it orange. They give it a different color to like kind of highlight it's a loan, but it's not aid. The Parent Plus loan, like I said, technically has a credit check to it. You might not get approved. There is that. It's slim possibility of not getting approved, but it could happen. So the fact that they call it aid really, as you can tell, really irks me. It's kind of deceitful. But anyway, let's move on.
yeah, real quick on the Parent Plus loan.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't get approved, I just want to, this is probably a different conversation, but there is an appeals process. So just if anyone does apply for the Parent Plus loan, doesn't get approved, there is a process to appeal that decision.
Yeah, you could appeal, and if you had to, you could get a co-borrower.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now here's another example where the school is kind of trying to hide what the real costs are, if you will. I mean, at the top, we circle it. They had the direct costs and indirect costs, but then you'll see in the middle they wrote estimated net cost, but they didn't do the total cost. They just used the direct costs and subtract out the grants and the free money from the direct costs. So they're artificially lowering the actual where they said net cost of like 40 in the middle 40,634. It's that plus those indirect costs of $4,540. They like, oh, we're not going to highlight that for you. Then of course as you go down, they show the direct loan, in this case again all unsubsidized, and so they say the estimated net cost 35,300 134. But again, it's really not, because they left off those indirect costs. They're trying to kind of like sweep that under the rug a bit. So really the cost direct your real cost is much closer to like 40,000, if you will, 39,674. So again, be mindful of that. Like when they give you your offer letter and they're kind of leading you down a path and figuring out the cost, you have to pay attention to, like, are they including all the costs? What are they including with the aid? You just really have to be mindful about it. Okay. Just don't take it at face value, but basically. I'm gonna.
Do I go back?
I just saw in the Q&A. Sorry, my eye caught the Q&A. Someone asked. I'm gonna answer this live. What's the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized loan? Real quick, super easy. Think of it this way: the subsidized loan, the government is subsidizing it. So in other words, the interest does not accrue while the student is in college. Like full time. Uh, so if they borrowed the 5,500 when they graduate, that principal balance is still 5,500. There's a grace period after graduating, then they have to go into repayment. So that'll be on a subsidized part of the loan. That's the first time when they go into repayment. That's the first time the loan actually starts to capitalize and grow interest on it, right? In other words, the government is subsidizing it the whole time. The unsubsidized, the interest is accumulating. The interest accumulates from the moment you borrow. So they borrow an unsubsidized loan. The key to always remember is make the interest payments while you're in school. So if like every quarter they get an interest bill for $25 for interest payment, pay it, because if you don't, it's going to capitalize, and that's where people get in trouble. Is all the sob stories about, like, I borrowed X amount of dollars, but now when I graduated, somehow it's way more. How did it happen? I'm like, well, because you didn't pay the interest on your unsubsidized loans. So, but anyway, that's the difference between sub and unsub loans. Okay, sorry, go on. Drexel is an example of a school I love for multiple reasons, but one of them is the clarity in their financial aid offer letters. They make it very obvious, very clear, like, this is the free money, right? They highlight it, categorize it, scholarships and grants. They make it very clear. And again, the Dean Scholarship, that is indeed a scholarship that was awarded based upon merit. The grants, all of that stuff. Some of the reason you see the estimated Pell Grant and estimated SEO is because that's from the feds. That requires the FAFSA. At that time, actually, I remember the federal funding hadn't been finalized yet, but that's why it said estimated. But anyway, makes it extremely clear. I love the financial aid offer letters from Drexel. Show the next page, and it's going to show us the cost. Again, they make it, I find, very clear. They show that, the estimated total cost of attendance. They subtract out the gift money. They show us the net cost, and then they say, here's your options to cover those net costs. That's where they're showing the work study, the kids' direct loans. Like, they're making it, to me, very obvious that the loans are not didn't lower your net cost. The loans are a way to help finance that net cost. And then they even put in the bottom separately, like, oh, hey, here's, there is a parent loan, or we offer a payment plan, or, like, I find that I just like how they make it very, I feel, very clear about, like, this is really how to follow the flow of our costs, and what was the free money and what wasn't the free money. So anyway, no one needs to put a comment in there, but if you want to, just like a thumbs up. Anyone apply? Anyone accepted Drexel? Any hearts? You can do emojis. But yeah, one of my favorite schools. Oh, okay, yeah, love it. Can't say enough good stuff about Drexel. Okay, let's move on. Oh, so Stevens, another thing, an element that this is the nerd in me, and I think probably for Kevin, the nerds in us love that Stevens tells you what the student aid index is. Not only just the FAFSA, which you would know just when you fill out a FAFSA, but they tell exactly what they calculated your SAI to be based upon the CSS profile info. Love that. That is super important to know when it comes to potentially knowing, did I get a fair offer? Did they short me? All that kind of stuff. Just to give you an example, is if if you remember, if anybody went to our financial aid webinars, if you remember the fundamental formula of financial aid, as I call it, if a school's, let's say, sticker price is 100,000 and your SAI was 60,000, therefore you needed 40. Did you get 40? You know, but a lot of schools don't put what the SAI was, what they calculate. I mean, if you do just a FAFSA, the FAFSA will tell you what the FAFSA SAI was. But the schools that use the CSS profile rarely. This is an exception, and I love it. But in this case, Stevens tells you this is what we calculated your SAI to be based upon that CSS profile information, all that extra information, and therefore it's like you can do the math and go, okay, they at least did they meet my need? Again, if my previous example was if my need was 40,000, did I get 40,000, or did they only give me like 25? Like if I know right away that I got shorted, I know I need to start negotiating. I need to appeal. So I love it when they provide the SAI. So if you check your offer letter, just look to see if any of your schools offered the SAI, wrote it down. I think it's super helpful to know, because otherwise, if you don't know that, frankly, if you start to negotiate or appeal, you're kind of fishing. You're trying to figure out, hey, what did you calculate it to be? And a lot of times the schools don't want to tell you. So it makes it, you have to do more investigative type of appealing, and it can be just more difficult and to navigate, certainly by yourself. But so yeah, anyway, I love it. I nerd out when I see that they tell us the SAIs like that. So anyway,
especially if our numbers match it. And which is another reason why you want to create your MyCap account, put everything in right now, just to know if the numbers do or don't match. But it's especially exciting, which our numbers are always spot on. So when our numbers match,
oh yeah,
always. And it's also, like you said, it makes our lives so much easier for appeals. But I'll go to the next slide.
yeah, love it. So evaluating that financial aid offer letter, right? They're on that offer letter telling you what the sticker price is. Maybe don't tell you, maybe they do, maybe they don't tell you the SAI, but you can figure out what your net cost will be. And I guess, like I said, is like if you know what your SAI is, or roughly what it should be, then you have an idea of like what you should be eligible for. And that's important to know. Again, is like if you, let's say you have your MyCap account set up, and you put all your information in there, and it's the MyCap tells you like, hey, your SAI for institutional should be around, again, I'm making this up, $37,000. Does that, is that what you're seeing with the offer letters? Is that what, like when you do the math and go, what's my net cost? Is that lining up? Of course, MyCap will also tell you what you should be looking at. I mean, MyCap does all the math for you, but it'll tell you what you should also be expecting total. But the idea is it's always kind of the baseline of what you potentially should receive. So again, if a sticker price is 100,000, what did I say? SAI, it was, let's say 37. Therefore, you need 53,000 or 60, yeah, 53,000. It doesn't necessarily mean the school gave you the 53,000, because sometimes schools don't have the money. I'll be honest. Sometimes they just don't have enough funds and they give what they can. But it's helpful to know that, and potentially gives you something to lean on and negotiate, especially if your student is, let's say, I'll word it this way: if they got an average financial aid offer, but they are academically above average of what the incoming class is, oh, I'd be leveraging that all day long. I forget what the exact calculation. I'm blanking. It's been so many years, but there's a calculation we had in enrollment services that basically was along the lines of how much like profit do we need for at a certain academic level, and basically the smarter the kids are, the less profit we're willing to take, to help recruit them. So anyway, let's move on.
Well, so hold on,
Oh
real
yeah.
quick. I wanna stop sharing because at this point I want to share the software. But you know what you and I were talking about before, what we're gonna ask everyone to do?
Yeah.
I think now's a good time. So obviously our boot camp is a two-part boot camp. And we've got what we're covering today with all these awards and everything else, but tomorrow, a little bit more in depth in terms of how to appeal, types of appeals, things like that. We want everyone to put in their students, and I know what's going to happen with the chat right now as soon as I say it, but in the chat, not in the Q&A, put in the number one school your student wants to go to, their top choice. And what we're going to do is tonight and tomorrow, before the presentation, we're going to take a look at that list and as a team, try and come up with a few real life case studies to share during the presentation tomorrow so you can hear actual examples at the school your student wants to go to. Now, obviously, there's going to probably be, was there 20 already? Can't do 20 during tomorrow. We're going to do as many as we can. But I do promise we're going to look into this tonight, tomorrow, and we will share some real life examples on the call. Sorry, it's going to take me a minute. All right. So we've been telling everyone to create a MyCap account, but I want to actually show you how to use it. And hopefully I'm still logged in. So what you would do is you would want to go and you'd create it. At this point, you've already filed the FAFSA, you've already filed the CSS profile. So you want to make sure the information in your profile lines up exactly with the FAFSA and the CSS profile. So you fill this out. And then what you're going to do is we're going to skip past school selection, affordability, all of that for right now. We're going to go straight to compare awards. And you're going to take the award that you have, or all the awards that you have, and you're going to upload them. And you're going to just click add award. And let's say we were talking about so highly of Drexel before, which just so everyone knows, we are not affiliates of Drexel. But bear with me. I'll just click a school here. It has to be a school on the school list. So I'll just pick Amherst. I was going to use Drexel, but I did not add it to the account. And then you would upload the award. So you literally just drag and drop and then it would translate it automatically. So it would take the numbers that are on the offer. And we've been all year long working to improve this translation feature. And I know we just released an update to this. So it'll take the numbers and it'll translate them based on what's on the offer. And then you're going to be able to compare all of the offers at the colleges your student gets accepted into. That offer will also be visible here under the school in the award letter tab. You'll be able to see it. And you'll be able to always reference back to it. And let me go back here. And then you'll also be able to see your ability to appeal. Right, so we've got Boston College here. The reason Boston College says strong is partly because we know Boston College is always a little bit unfair with how they award money, and then partly because of the numbers that we have here. Same thing with
Are you saying BC is known for lowballing?
Wait, that's like mic drop. Yeah, yeah. BC lowballing, not giving a sibling discount, using all home equity. We could go on and on. But
Yeah.
Amherst, another example here, strong case. Dickinson says low, but I just want to point out, if it says low, it doesn't mean no, right? It doesn't mean you don't have a chance to appeal. It's just whenever we talk about appeals, and you'll hear this tomorrow too, and we talk about who's going to be successful and who's going to be unsuccessful, it's just odds of success, but it's not like it's not worth trying, in my opinion, right? I think that there's a lot of times where you set the expectation, you know, you're probably not going to get more money. You don't have a great chance, maybe 15, 20% chance of success, but it's like, still take the time and do it because a lot of money is on the line here, right? Especially with Dickinson costing 50 and Amherst being 48, right? You can already come up with the reasons. But before I stop sharing this, JP, is there anything that you want to add to it?
I mean, at the end of the day, my biggest, if anyone's listened to me talk in the past about financial aid or anything, is you'll know is my biggest thing is you need to know if the college is affordable or not. You know, um, the like just in this made up example here, this is more of a planning stage thing that I do. Like I have a family that's class of 2027, and I I found a list of I know what their academic desires were and all that stuff, and I found them a list of schools that are an academic fit. And when it comes to a financial fit, like I'm not showing them any schools that were a caution, because I'm kind of like, again, the analogy I like to use is to compare college to is like buy your kid a car. When my kid turns 16 and says, "Hey, I want a car," my knee jerk reaction isn't to go to the Aston Martin dealership or the Ferrari dealership. Like I'm not spending that. I can't afford to spend that. So I would never even entertain it. So that's just always my stance is like, like IECs and college counselors at high schools, they tend to use these terms. I don't like these terms necessarily, but they always like to use or common terms, I should say. I shouldn't say always, but common terms are like, these schools are an academic fit or an academic, or an academic target, or academic reach, or a safety. Um, think of it in that same terms financially. It has to be, we have to be able to afford it. And so I always look at the affordability page. Like ideal means I need no loans, right? A good would be, hey, the only loans we're going to need are the federal direct loans. I'm happy with that too. But anyway, like I always want to pay attention to the affordability, because like my class of 2026 families, they're getting their acceptances and they're coming to me and saying, like, oh wow, we got a really great financial aid. I'm like, yeah, but it's still twice your budget. And I'm kind of I'm the reality check for them and say, you need to tell me, how are we going to pay this? Like we can't just make money come out of air. How are we going to pay this? Not just freshman year, but all 4 years. So this is the page that I live on a lot, is the affordability, the how to pay. Of course, my attitude about appeals, go back to the appeals again.
Yeah.
You had an example like low, you know, my attitude is shoot your shot every
Yeah.
time. Like it never hurts to ask, right? Now, I mean, I might not get approved. I might have a low probability, but I have no problem asking every time. And so like I have plenty of situations this year. I'm like, oh, we got way more than we hoped. Well, we're still going to ask for more again. Uh, what's your little social media blast right now campaign? Squeezing lemons.
Squeeze more out of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I have no problem asking for more, regardless of what this tells me. I
You
like,
saw my comment today in Slack. We got 22, somewhere around $22,000 extra from BU, and it was like that was about 7 grand more than I even expected. First reaction, right? We're going back for more. But there's no harm, and I didn't mean to just jump in, but I was thinking of
no,
that.
you're yeah,
There's
100.
no
percent
harm in asking. There's no harm in asking, and there's no harm in trying. I think everyone at this point feels like we're running out of time to do anything, but you're not. And like college is the biggest investment that many families make, not only financially for themselves, right, but also for their students. And you should be taking time, like JP said, and really now even thinking through affordability, right? Thinking through, can we make this work for 4 years, not just 1 year? Especially with the new loan limits on the Parent Plus loan, right? There is no fail safe. Oh, things are not going well. We can take the Parent Plus loan for 100 grand a year. It's
Yeah,
20 grand cap, basically, 65,000 for a student's lifetime. That's going to really impact things as well.
yeah. I had that harsh consult. It wasn't one of my quote unquote wake me clients, but it was an hour consult with a family who, I mean, we just got down to brass tacks, and I was like, how are we going to pay for this? And they didn't, I guess, didn't know that the Parent Plus loan rules changed, and they were just like, we're gonna take out a Parent Plus loan for everything. And I was like, no, you're not. The most you can take out is 20,000 a year. The most you can do for 4 years is 65,000. That's not going to cut it. And I'm like, who else is going to give you a loan? And in their situation, it's not going to be anyone. And I'm like, the and I'll just say this to the parents now, and I'm not trying to be, I'm just going to be real, and that is, at this stage, if you discover a school is just too expensive, but it's like, oh, it's their dream school, I don't care. If it's too expensive, you can't afford it, you tell them no. You got to have that hard conversation now, because this is what's going to happen. Maybe not next year, maybe the year after, maybe the year after that. But at some point, if you don't really have an affordable, viable plan to pay for college, they're going to have to drop out maybe in that sophomore, junior year, right? Because colleges won't let you keep coming for free. If you don't pay the bill, they don't let you register. They don't let you come back. And that would be the unforgivable scenario. And so I would much rather have that hard conversation now with my kid and just say, hey, I'm run the numbers. It's just really not possible. Have that hard conversation now, be the bad guy now, because that's way better than the alternative option, in a couple of years from now. So, but we got to be real. Money, the government isn't just lending out money willy nilly anymore. You got to know exactly how you're going to pay for that. And that's, I mean, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but go ahead, Kevin.
It's so true though. It's so look at the numbers here. Like this is all times four. The dollar amounts that we're talking about are huge. So it's like you have to know now how you're going to pay for it. You can't just figure it out year by year, or we'll hope it works. Right? It doesn't work that way anymore. Um, we're doing really good on time. I thought that we weren't going to have enough time to go through all this. Why don't we spend a minute here talking through this tab, and then we'll talk through a few more things at the end. I think right earlier you said you wanted to say something about
Yeah, so kind of picking back on my harsh conversation, the harsh reality sometimes is so like in this made up example, and I didn't see what school is this. I guess it doesn't matter, but
I'll tell you in a sec. This is Bentley.
Bentley, okay. So in this school scenario, we're saying, hey, cost of tenants about 95,000, financial aid about 35, and you had a budget of about 40. Like a healthy budget. That's just 1 year budget, right? Great. I mean, that's a healthy budget. But at the end of the day, there's still a gap of I'm rounding up to keep my numbers easy, but let's call it a gap of almost 20,000. How are we going to pay that? And this is the thing. I will say how you pay can sometimes, not always, but can sometimes be more impactful or more important than how much what it was you paid. And I'll give you an example. So one of my clients from a couple of years ago, I have so apologize, Kevin, but one of my clients from a couple of years ago, he's a financial advisor in the Northeast, and this was his third kid we were helping, but one of his clients reached out to him and just said, "Hey, my kid's going to college, and I need, should I? I think I'm gonna just take a loan for it, or should I, pull money out of my investments?" And first thing he said is, "You need to book a consult with JP." And so, he connected us. She booked a consult, and but before we had our meeting, I guess she went and Googled, like best college loans. I won't besmirch which company she went with initially, but she by the time we met, she's like, I don't know why he wants me to meet you. I've already figured it out. I'm going to take this loan. It's Google says it's the best loan, and I can afford the monthly payment and all that stuff. And I was like, can you share your screen and log in and show me what you got, what you started, what you've been pre-approved for? And she was just borrowing for the freshman year $33,000. And when she logged in and she showed me the screen, like literally on the page, there was 3 like bulletin boards, like Vegas signs lit up pointing, but the one in the middle was the one that was pointing to like most popular option. This is the, all this stuff. They didn't say best because that would be, can't do that, but it said most popular option and all this kind of stuff. And it technically was the lowest monthly payment. And I was like, did you read the details? Did you read the fine print? And she's like, no. I'm like, oh, okay, let's read the fine print. Well, it comes to turn out like it's not at all what she thought. And when we finally got to it, the fine print says, by the time you pay this loan off, you will have paid back $78,000 for a $33,000 loan. That's insane, right? And so I said, please don't do that. Your financial advisor will kill you. Don't do that. And so instead, we went a different route. One of my suggestions, and she got pre-approved in like 5 minutes. Got pre-approved, and we went through the fine print. And by the time she paid back that $33,000 loan, she would have paid it was like $39,000. I'd rather not have to pay any loan, but if I'm going to, I'd rather pay $39,000, not $78,000. Imagine if she did that 4 years in a row. Like, I saved her over 4 years about $125,000 just in finance charges, right? So the idea is how you pay is super important as well. But at the end of the day, like I said, if this scenario on my cap, if this was you, my candid conversation with you is how are you going to cover that $18,500 gap? I would start with the federal direct loan for we know the kid's going to be awarded. That's 5,500. Okay. Now you got that funding gap down to about 13,000. How are you going to do that? Your budget, you've already conveyed that like that's what you can afford to pay cash or what you can liquidate in assets. So how, like you tell me you're going to finance that remaining, let's say 13,000, I'm going to say, can you afford that monthly payment? And can you afford it after you have to do it again sophomore year and again in junior year and again senior year? Can you afford it? That's the thing. I always, we just need to have a reality check and just make sure you have a viable 4 year plan on how to pay for college. Um, because again, you just got to avoid the scenario. And this is speaking to someone who worked, at USC in the financial aid office and had to deal with those kids crying in my office in their junior or senior years saying, I can't come back. I have to drop out. And they're, racked with all that debt and no college degree. You got to avoid that. I can't stress that enough. But anyways, I feel like I've gone on with that story too long. Go ahead,
It's good.
Kevin.
It's all good.
You talk.
No, we're gonna do it. We'll call it a night in a sec. Let me share my screen. I'm gonna share it a little bit differently so it's easier for me. So I apologize if it doesn't look perfect. But so we're getting close to the end here. I want to do a little teaser with real world examples for some maybe one or two schools that are written into the chat of what maybe can come tomorrow, but also for tomorrow. We've said this before, but it's going to be more so of the when, how, right? So when do you appeal, right? How do you do it? And then what can you do about paying, right? And we're not going to get super deep on student loans, but we are going to talk a little bit about how to minimize that debt. So I will, on that note, I'll go here. So if anyone's been following us, great. I hope we've been giving you a ton of value, but I want to offer it to everyone who's been following us for a long time, for anyone who's been following us for a first time, to take us up on the opportunity to do an appeal assessment, to talk through whether or not you have a case to an appeal or you don't. And again, like JP and myself were saying earlier, it doesn't mean you're not going to appeal, but we're going to say essentially high or low, right? Obviously more detailed than that. Obviously, we're going to ask more questions, but we're going to try to determine what are your odds of success. But the reason I'm sharing this tonight is because we are only offering the consults until March 1st. And if we're doing that, we don't have a ton of availability. I can actually screen share the availability in a second. But it's like, if you're going to do this at all, right, go schedule the meeting tonight. You can meet with us over the next few days and we can talk through your ability to appeal. This isn't a requirement, but it's helpful for us if you do actually take the time to create a MyCap account and upload your offers. It's not just helpful for us, it's going to ultimately be helpful for you as well. Because we're going to talk through your situation, we're going to talk through the schools, and we're very quick at determining odds of success. So take a picture or take a shot of the QR code, trying to scroll all the way up to get the scheduling link. And I'll drop this in the chat. And then I'll also drop in a page that I'm going to share in a second. Let me stop sharing this, and then I'll drop this. So you can see here from an availability perspective, there are plenty of times right now, but I guarantee that these are going to go fast. We do obviously work with families on this process. We are running a promotion for Bootcamp. So you can get 16% off. At this point in the process, we would hope that it's just, appeals and paying the bill. So we had a lot of questions tonight on loans. We're very good at loans. Someone mentioned the 2% interest loan that we sometimes tease. That's something that we go over with clients. But yeah, we work with families one-on-one with this process. I don't know if you heard it before with some of the examples we used, and we'll share a couple of examples in a minute, but we do hundreds of appeals a year, and we know what works and what doesn't work. We know what to say. And JP, I don't know if you agree or not, but I think the most important part of the appeal is figuring out the right strategy. Like you can do the best merit appeal at Harvard, you're not going to get anything. And you could do the best appeal on home equity at Princeton. They don't even use home equity. It's like you have to know the levers to pull. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, yeah, 100% right. I would when I worked in financial aid office and I'd have a family like just show up at my door or whatever, and they're like we need more money and whatnot, and I'd be like, okay, let's unpack that. What's that mean? Or like, why? And then they start going down a litany of the reasons of like, well, I don't this and this and this and this, and I'd be like, yeah, that wasn't even factored in. Like I didn't even know about that. I literally, fun story. I one time had a student appealing to me for more aid, and she went on this whole explanation about how the family's restaurants weren't doing as well and they were making less money. And I conveyed to her, I was like, you've never told us about these restaurants. I was like, you want to stop right now because otherwise I'm going to give you less financial aid. But anyways, like it's again, you're right though. It's like knowing what there is a strategy to it. Like there's I've had people send appeals to schools and they're like they never got anything. There's a uh, I don't want to be mean. There's a fake financial aid expert out in California, not too far from where I used to live, and
Who does a
he
lot of
would
boot camps?
he would do boot camps. I'm not going to say anymore, except he charges, and he supposedly guarantees he'll show you how to save money. But
A
anyway,
Starbucks gift card.
yeah, I'm not going to say anymore. But anyway, like the family went to that, paid for all that, and followed his advice and got nothing. And then they found me, um, and they told me their situation. I was like, oh yeah, that appeal absolutely wasn't going to go anywhere. And I was like, but you could appeal this or try this or go this strategy. And they came back like a couple weeks later and told me like, wow, we got like I think it was like $7,500 more. So yeah, it was well worth the time to hire me for that. But yeah, strategy matters. You can't just haphazardly send a letter and say, please give us more.
These numbers didn't come out of thin air. Like the strategy really does matter. And I'm not saying that to make anyone feel like they can't do this on their own. They can't do it without our help. It's because you want to invest the time and you want to take the energy and look everything over, look at the FAFSA, look at the CSS, look at the tax returns. If you're doing a need-based appeal, really think through the details before you send that appeal. There are some schools, and I think I shared this with the team, JP, but it was like Bates. They're like, we don't look at the second appeal. We only look at the first appeal.
Yeah.
And there are some schools that are like that. So it's like, you got to get it right the first time. And I'm not trying to make it sound overly scary or anything else. It's just take time, do it right. These numbers didn't come from nowhere. These numbers came because we know what levers to pull. But someone asked for details. This is in all the details here. I think I put it in the chat, but I'll just drop it in once more. It's in the landing page that I just shared in the chat, so you can look through. But again, regardless if you want us to help or if you're gonna do appeals on your own, still let us talk to you about if you have a good chance or if you don't. And we were talking about the software before. One thing I don't think we said earlier, JP, was that you can only put in 3 schools for free. Right. So if you're going to be uploading 20 offers or, if your student applied to 20 schools or 10 different offers, you are going to need to upgrade to premium and you'd be able to upload all of the offers and compare. And then the recordings will be here. We got that question a bunch, but the recordings will be here tomorrow as well. Okay, it looks like there's only 1 day left. Huh. I said time was going fast, but that's a weird format there. But okay, do you want to do one quick story? I know we're over time already. Do you want to do one quick story or do we call it a night?
Give me
You
a
want
second. I'm responding to
to
someone.
take your time. All right, so I'm gonna spend just a minute to try to look through this list of schools to see if there's any school that we can just quickly do a firsthand RITs in here. I will mention that next week we are doing a presentation with Dean of Admissions from RIT. But let me see. I'm going to do a quick story on UPenn because I think this just goes to show why not to write things in the special circumstances section. But one time I had a family come to me and they wrote basically their appeal in special circumstances. And we know that that doesn't work. And UPenn gave them their initial offer. Literally copy and pasted what was in special circumstances because everything was detailed, outlined correctly into an appeal to UPenn. They got an extra $8,300.
I believe that.
They didn't even look.
No,
And
we never. That's why I tell families never put anything in the CSS
yeah,
profile like under special comments or special circumstances. It almost never gets looked at.
yeah.
It almost never gets looked at. You save that till after you get your offer letter, and then yeah.
Do you want to do one real quick and then we'll call it a night?
Um, the only other thing I'll say, with appeals is, nothing's guaranteed with appeals. You could even have the most solid strategy. Um, some schools are maybe just have the personality that it's just not going to go anywhere. And there could be different reasons for it. For example, I helped a family last year. It was a complex situation, but at the end of the day, I would simplify it and just say it was a mom who was trying to do a non-custodial parent waiver, and it was a righteous, justified appeal. Like, I won't get into the details, but it absolutely, and she had the documentation to go with it. And the daughter's, of course, first choice school is USC, and then her second choice was Chapman, and I think the third choice was University of San Diego. So I helped them put together appeal, put the strategy together, got the documentation together, and so it's the same appeal, same strategy, just addressed to the different schools, send them out. University of San Diego approved it, Chapman approved it, USC just would not approve it. And it was frustrating because back in my day when I ran the thing, absolutely would have approved it, but I'll just say that USC's financial aid office hasn't had a dean for a couple of years, and the vice provost of enrollment services, I know him very well, is technically an interim, and anything that got routed up to him, he just sent it back to this person who was acting in charge, and she's earned a very negative reputation in Southern California, and she flat out called the mom, and said, "I think you're lying." Just without, regardless of all that. And it's just one of those situations where, like, it didn't matter where we escalated, it just wasn't going anywhere. So I will say that there are no guarantees, but if you do want help and you work with us, we will make sure you have the most sound strategy put together, and we will help you try to get as much squeeze as much out of them as possible.
A video. We've got some good social media posts, everyone, if you haven't seen them. So real quick, and then we'll go at something happened where we just ran out of availability. So and I
Wow,
saw
that was quick.
that was fast. So I just messaged our team, and you will now see some availability added. So we had to basically very quickly extend the deadline. Now you'll see that availability is added till March 3rd. We are not going to extend it past March 3rd though. So grab times, please. And we look forward to day 2 of Bootcamp. We look forward to anyone who decided to book some time with us and talk through appeals. And we wish everyone the best of luck with this process.
All right, everybody, have a great night, and yeah, show up for tomorrow. The get through a bit more about the specific appeals and how to and all that stuff. But hopefully, this at least gives you the foundation to understand your financial aid offer letters and get a sense. If nothing else, use the MyCap software and get a sense, like, is there a spot to appeal? All right.
All right.
Be
Good
good.
night, everyone.